All right, and then I'll pull up my screen so we can get started. Well, officially welcome everyone to the Business Value Blueprint Education session. Can you just give me a thumbs up? Make sure you can see my slides. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to give you a very quick tutorial of this tool and hopefully give you some thought starters on how to begin creating your own personal business value blueprint. We have a little bit of a welcome exercise that you can participate in if you'd like in the chat. Most of you are either business owners, solopreneurs, founders, or work for a small business. So if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, feel free to put in 3 words that describe your expertise. And then if you want to add a challenge that you're currently facing with growing your business or reaching more clients, you're welcome to share that as well. We can use that as a little icebreaker. All right. Yes, retention is certainly a big piece for anyone in any business. Business development is certainly a big challenge.
I'm sorry, what was the question that we're answering in chat?
Are you able to see the slides, Bill?
Oh, actually, you know what? Now I am. Yes. Describe your.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, just putting that in the chat if you feel comfortable describing your expertise and then a challenge
Super.
that you're facing. It's just helpful to
Great.
get to know everyone. I think a lot of our challenges relate to just getting clients or retaining clients or, making sure that we can deliver fresh content. So see some similarities in there. You're welcome to continue to put things in the chat as I introduce our session and introduce myself. So purpose of today is to help you understand how the business value blueprint can either help you grow, start, or serve as a launch pad to develop your business, no matter if you're a founder or someone who works for a small business. It's a very simple framework. There are many different frameworks out there, and I'll explain a little bit how I created the blueprint out of a variety of other frameworks. But it's a simple and effective framework that is meant to be continuously iterative over time. So rather than some of the maps that gear towards people who are just starting in creating their business, and they create this canvas or this business model and then shove it away in some folder and maybe never look at it again. This is meant to be a continuously evolving blueprint as you grow your business, as you learn and develop and understand what your strengths are and who you want to reach. As far as me, some of you know who I am, and some of you are just meeting me for the first time. My name's Kaitlin Hensey. I have been operating my independent business for about 1.5 years now. It has definitely morphed and evolved over the course of that 1.5 years. About I guess about 1 year now is when I joined Pika. So I've been a Pika member for about 1 year, and I will say, I'll give my little Pika sales pitch, even though I'm not the Pika salesperson, but Pika has probably been the #1 most effective support mechanism for me as I've grown my business. So a lot of Pika members here. It's a fabulous way to just network and collaborate with other organizations. And really what I enjoy doing is helping business owners or leaders get unstuck. So some of the challenges that you all described in the chat around business development, client retention, actually knowing who to target and how to actually get them to close deals so you can become successful, growing in a market that is becoming very saturated with consultants. Those are the ways that those are some of the problems that I like to help solve for people using a blend of mindfulness and reflection, business development techniques, human-centered design, and a little bit of change management as well. So I personally created the business value blueprint after feeling very frustrated at some of the complicated tools that are out there currently. There are a lot of tools that are meant to help solopreneurs or business owners, business leaders develop. There's the business model canvas, which some of you may have heard of. Donald Miller has his airplane model and has multiple different books. There are a plethora of various cohorts, accelerators, programs, whatever you want to call it, that are truly meant to help people develop their business and get started. The challenge that I found with some of these are one, they introduced language that was unfamiliar to me. So not only did I have to think really critically to know what to put in each of the different categories or boxes, but I also had to try to understand what a channel is or what different marketing techniques would be when I really had no idea where to start. The other challenge I had is that it was not meant to be a continuously evolving tool and didn't have the application component. So I have this canvas or I have this model now. Now, what do I do with it? What pieces do I use and where? How do I use it in my business development and marketing strategy? How do I actually use it to prioritize my time and my energy and even my money to know what's going to be the best investment for me long term in order to grow my business? So I took some of the resources out there, some of them that I mentioned, and created my own version, which is called the Business Value Blueprint, that is focused, yes, on the development piece and getting that foundation of your blueprint. So you have that on paper and then can evolve it from there, but also really heavily focused on the application piece. So how do you use some of the language that's in your blueprint to actually grow your business? So you don't have to start from scratch or a blank sheet of paper every time you're trying to write a LinkedIn post or develop your website or determine which networking group to join or map out your elevator pitch, that you actually have language, verbiage, and resources that you can pull from, which will be a part of your blueprint. So I went through a little bit of what the blueprint is. At a high level, there are 6 components. I'll go through each of the 6 components again at a very high level today. And just know that in the workbook that you probably downloaded ahead of time, that is a mini version of an extended workbook that is available for purchase on the Pika website that guides you through creating each section of the blueprint with specific questions, with activities, with thought starters, and then at the end has some recommendations for how to apply it. So the purpose of today is just to give you a brief feel for what is part of each of these 6 components to get you to think, is this going to be helpful for me at this stage of my business growth? The ways that this will benefit you are numerous. I think the biggest piece that I have heard from other solopreneurs or business owners that I have taken through this is just the accountability and the dedicated time to do this very thoughtful and strategic work. No matter how often we carve time out in our calendars to do it ourselves, starting from a blank sheet of paper or trying to complete it ourselves can be quite challenging. So just having the ability to have guiding questions, and then if you are to join the cohort, have a cohort that guides you and holds you accountable for completing certain steps along the way, can be a really great way to actually commit to doing this. This is meant to be this launch pad for building your business, for marketing, if you have been in business for several years, for refining some of your offerings or broadening your base to a different client segment, and actually turn some of the ideas that are up here into tangible actions that can result in hopefully achieving your definition of success. So this explains the 6 components of the blueprint. We'll go through each of the components in detail, but on a very simple level, it is 5 W's and an H. So who, what, when, where, why, how of your business. I personally like this because it's pretty easy to remember. You just think, all right, 5 W's and an H. These are words that we've seen before. We know what they mean. They're easy to keep in the back of our mind to consider, all right, how am I going to actually apply some of this? So that's where each of these 6 components comes in. Together, all 6 of them create this map or blueprint, if you will, to help you build, grow, and evolve your business over time. We will start with the who component. So on many different models or canvases, you've probably seen guidance in understanding who your customers are and maybe understanding who can refer business to you. I like to think that there are 3 different components to the who. There is definitely the customer component. We have to know who you're serving. And then there's also the expert component. So this is what I like to think about in terms of who are the people that you need in order to help your business function successfully. Those of you who are seasoned business owners probably know that there are certain things that you just do not have an appetite to do. So there's a lack of desire, or you just don't have the time or the willingness to learn how to do it. So for example, a lot of our teams of experts relate to lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, maybe marketing specialists, people who can manage our social media channels, things like that, that we can take off of our plates in order to focus on actually serving our clients and doing the work that's meaningful. And then there's this power partner category, which this is the piece that I get most excited to tell people about, because I think the importance of power partners is often overlooked. The power partners are the people who can sell on your behalf. And if you develop very conscious relationships with them and help them become an extension of your team, then some of the selling and the business development can happen without you actually having to do anything or be anywhere. There are a couple of different ways that we can identify who those power partners are. And I have some just sample questions. This is a sampling from what is actually a part of the larger business value blueprint building component, but some sample questions that could help you create and identify your power partners. The questions are listed up here, and before I kind of go through them, you all can read on the screen, but I'm curious if anyone has an example or a story of a relationship that they've built from a power partner that has been very useful or valuable for them. Does anyone have a good power partner story?
I'll share.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Sure. I will say I love that this is on here because this has really been a tool to scale my business. In fact, yesterday, one of my partners, he's on the team, but he's also a partner, and we're building a product together. So really have been able to see that it helps grow both of our business when they see the synergy, when you get diverse perspectives of, he happens to be in Canada, I'm here. He's a man, I'm a woman. Like, there's all just this different beautiful things that come out of this, but we're able to better serve the client because he has a specialty in areas that I don't. Like, he's not a core HR person, but we both, our values align in terms of culture and diversity and things of that nature. So that's really been cool. And that's just one of like maybe 3 or 4, but it also, like you said, then I don't have to be everywhere. Either he can facilitate or create the content, or we do it together, and you just get more like energy behind that as well.
Yes, and there's certainly power partners that can become an extension of our team and actually start doing some of the work. And I think even before you get to that place in your business, developing power partners in terms of people who can refer you to other clients is extremely valuable, even if they're not involved in actually delivering the end content or the service or the offering. So a couple of the questions that I recommend, and this is part of the building of the blueprint to find your power partners, is who has the same customers that I have, who's targeting the same business, but isn't in direct competition with me. So who wants to serve the same customer base, but offers a completely different product. And maybe we don't end up working together, but at least they know the people that I want to know, and they can mention my name if some of the problems that I'm trying to solve pop up. The other big piece of this is who already has established trust with the customers that you're trying to sell to, and therefore getting a recommendation from them would be very, very valuable and give you kind of a golden ticket into having a relationship and hopefully closing a deal. And the last one is just based on time wise, are there people that sell something right before you would come in and could then pass the client off to you in a way that is very synergistic. So that way the client says, oh, okay, I've fulfilled this need and now I'm on to this need. And this person's able to give me someone who can jump right in and be effective in serving me. So the best example I kind of have of this power partner relationship is one of the clients that I was helping runs a business that sells office furniture. So they help provide offices with all sorts of different fun chairs, desks, tables, environmental stuff that makes the culture come to life. They developed a really good power partner relationship with a building manager and a leasing agent who was able to actually sell the real estate for office buildings. So in that relationship, as soon as an office building was sold, likely they're going to need furniture to make that come to life and actually have employees there. So having that relationship ended up being really valuable for my client who sold office furniture, because he was able to get clients directly fed to him by the real estate agent, leasing agent, after the building was sold, which created a whole lot less work for him in finding clients. Any questions about the who component? I focus mostly on the power partner piece, but again, in the full blueprint discussion, we do go through each of these sections, the customers, the power partners, and the teams of experts to help you kind of identify who those people are. The next W is the what. So this is traditionally what people talk about as your service, your offering, your product. It's what are you actually selling to someone? What does someone get in exchange for their purchase? There could be a variety of different aspects to this what. Some of you may truly sell a physical product. I'm guessing most of you are probably service-based, which is sometimes a little bit more challenging to sell because you can't tangibly describe what it is they're getting right away. The value piece might take a couple weeks, months to actually occur. So in the what, we take anything that is intangible, so some sort of service, and make that tangible by thinking about the outputs that the person receives, even if that's just a slide deck, a workshop, a report, a data analysis. There's always going to be some sort of component that is tangible that you can speak to say, this is what you will get at the end of our relationship. That allows you to gain a little bit faster buy-in than just describing some of the intangible values that you will be able to provide to them. That piece is still important, and that comes in when we talk about the why, but in the what, we dig a little bit deeper and say, how can you help your clients understand what they'll actually tangibly receive so they can start to get an idea of what that value looks like in a way that makes easier sense in their brain? The what is very closely tied with the why, which is your value proposition. This is incredibly important to sell your business. You've got to know the value that you're providing. But unlike the what, so the what is mostly based on the output. So what are you actually doing? The why is your outcomes. So what will someone see, experience, feel as a result of working with you? This is where it's incredibly important to gather some market research or customer feedback. So when I'm sharing the business value blueprint with some of my clients, either in groups or one-on-ones, even though it makes people uncomfortable, I do encourage them to actually get out there and speak with previous clients, or if you're just starting, people who could be in your client base, and get an understanding of that group's pains and gains. So what are some of the pain points that they're experiencing? Or on the opposite side, what are some of the things that they want, or that they would be hoping to gain from a partnership? And use that language to essentially craft your why statement, and make sure that it's targeted directly towards either being a pain reliever or a gain achiever, is what I like to call it. So people can actually resonate with what you're providing. This is going to help when you're doing any sort of business development to get people to actually pay attention to what you're doing. LinkedIn is very overpopulated right now. There are tons of posts every day. Email is also overpopulated. People get millions of messages and subscriptions and all sorts of things. So you want to get people to actually click and read what you're saying rather than just put it in the automatic delete button. And communicating this why in a way that resonates with your end customer is, in my mind, the key to do that. So people can stop and think, okay, I actually want to talk to Bill or see what Kendra has to offer, whoever it is, because this is something that resonates with me, and I can see how this would be valuable in relieving some of the pain points that I have. Does anyone have questions or thoughts about the value proposition and how closely that's tied to your service or your product? No. All right. Usually this is where I see, oh, sorry, Bill, were you going to ask a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, I just really like that phrase of that concept of, how does what I do act as a pain reliever or a goal achiever?
Yeah.
Is just really a nice crystallization of that thought.
Yes. Yes. And that's where, just keeping that top of mind when you're writing your blog post or posting on LinkedIn or, whatever it is you're doing can kind of help you clarify exactly what you want to say and make it pop rather than just kind of get lost in the sea of words.
Right. Yeah, we like to talk about what we do. Like
Mhm.
I can talk for days about resilience and
Yes.
adaptability, but people go, that's cool, but why do I need that? What's
Yeah.
that
And
gonna
how
make
is it going to be useful to me personally or
Yeah.
to my business? At the end of the day, I think all of us are in some ways inherently selfish, and we want to know before we spend our time, money, or energy on something if it's actually going to be valuable. I do the
Right.
same thing whenever I buy something. So speaking that language, and this is where when forming your why it is, when you're creating your why, it is very important to actually talk to your customers and get their perspective on things, because we have our own assumptions in our mind. However, we don't exactly know what that lived experience is until we talk to the people who are on the other side of it. So
That's
the
another
who, the
really
why,
good.
and the what are what I like to call the foundation of the blueprint, the house. So this is kind of what sets you up for success. And this is where we start in the cohort, because this allows us to kind of get into the interior design, which is the other three components. So one portion of that interior design is when. There's a variety of different when pieces. Some of them are just to map out and get a good sense of how you want to operate as a business. The first piece is, what is the length of your client engagements? Or what is your ideal length of client engagements? Are you more project-based or retention-based? Do you want to get in there and solve a problem within a couple of weeks or a month and then move on to the next client? Or do you want to develop a long-lasting partnership where you have clients for several years? And those types of things look really different. So framing that in your mind will allow you to better sell your product or do business development activity, because you can give people a sense of what that relationship looks like. If you are just starting off, or if you're thinking about creating a new offering, start thinking about how long it will take you to actually launch that. Is it something that's going to take several weeks, months, years? And that will give you an idea of when you actually want to start talking about it or posting about it on LinkedIn or your website. If there's a long lag time between when it's going to be available, it's probably not worth getting people super excited about it right now if they won't be able to reap the benefits immediately. The other big piece to this is the time that it will take your clients to receive their return on investment. This is a big one when you're talking about the what and the why, because a lot of times people get really excited and then they might buy something and expect to see the value immediately. So setting the stage up front, I find very helpful, because you can give people that precedent of, I'm going to get in there. We're first going to do the discovery and analysis phase where I have an idea of some of the issues that are going on within your culture and why people don't feel like there's a sense of psychological safety, or why there's a lack of inclusion or belonging within the company, whatever it is you're doing. Get in there and do the discovery. Then I'll give you my thoughts and recommendations of how to fix this. And then through some workshops, we can actually start delivering on some of these goals that you have. And typically I see clients, see a shift in their culture within a year after we work together. And I'm just kind of making this up. That time frame could be completely different than your personal time frame, but just setting that stage up front helps get that client relationship off to a good start, so people know, okay, it might take a little while. Don't say that you're going to see benefits in 30 days if people aren't going to see benefits in 30 days, because that's just going to add to the confusion down the road. And then the last piece here, and I saw Tiffany, you put a note in the chat, set your working hours. I have definitely experienced business owner burnout, because it is so easy. And I'm sure those of you who've been doing this for a little while know how easy it is to work all the time. There are always things that you can be doing to grow your business. The other side of it is, when you do get clients, make sure that they understand when you're available for meetings, when you're typically likely to respond to emails, what that response time looks like. That will create a better schedule and boundaries for yourself personally, so you can actually sustain your business long term. So these are all the different components of the when, like I said, that we get into a little bit more detail in the cohort. And then we have the where piece. So there's two different pieces of this. There's, where do you actually deliver your offerings? Are you doing a lot of in-person things? Is most of your work virtual? Do you have an office building or rent a space that people come to? Or do you go to the client site? Or do you deliver an on-demand product that people can actually purchase on your website and it gets to their inbox and they can start using it right away? So framing some of this up can help you with the language when you're building your LinkedIn page or your website, or even talking to people, to, again, make things a little bit more tangible. So, this is what I deliver and this is where I deliver it. I come to you, or we do virtual, or, whatever it might be for your business. And then the other piece to where, which relates back to the who, so it's all kind of intertwined, is, where do your decision makers hang out? So this could be either your customers or your power partners. I usually see a pretty big light bulb moment when I'm working with other founders in this piece, because they realize that they don't have to go to every networking event or attend every conference or post on every form of social media. So a recent story I'll share is a gentleman that I just finished a recent, one-on-one business value blueprint cohort with. Is, he realized after we defined the who, that his decision makers, both power partners and customers, really didn't go on any sort of social media. They weren't really active on LinkedIn. They definitely didn't go on Instagram or Twitter because they were so busy during the day. They didn't have time for that. So I asked him, okay, Brad, well then why are you stressing out about doing 3 LinkedIn posts a week? If the people that you want to reach aren't even there, like, take that off your plate, don't do it. And this is where the prioritization comes in. That may not be the case for you. It could, like for me, yes, a lot of my people I want to reach are on LinkedIn. So I am more active on LinkedIn. But this was a good aha moment for me and for the other people I've helped, to say, you can really focus and prioritize your time on what matters most and give yourself permission to say no to the other things. And this helps prevent you from getting burnt out too quickly. Any thoughts about the where? Are these things that all of you have thought about before?
I just had a recent epiphany. I'm very interested in public speaking and developing that whole practice as opposed to consulting, and I was listening to a talk about this, and they made the distinction between this idea that we can just passively build our market through social media, through LinkedIn, and build this audience and this amorphous audience. And then through that sort of organic process, the business opportunities will percolate up. And that's for me, that's a formula for burnout, because there's just no end to chasing that game. And
Yeah.
they were saying, find out who the decision makers are, that are like the event directors and other people who are making the decisions about who's going to speak at my next conference or who's going to speak at my next strategic planning thing. And it was like a light bulb moment for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, exactly what you said, Tiffany, is it's just so exhausting to try to go to all these things and get a lot of rejections. If you're not meeting with the right people, you get shut down quite often. I've lived through that. And once I got this piece right for my business, and I narrowed it down to like the 2 or 3 networking organizations that I really wanted to be involved in, it allowed me to make really good trade-offs about who I was going to go get coffee with in person and who was just going to get a 30-minute Zoom call, or where, how many networking events I was going to go to a month and who I wanted to even talk to at those events. So now I mean, it sounds potentially a little bit, mean in some ways, because I'm like, oh, I want to meet with anyone who wants to meet with me. But now I'm much more protective of my time and really focus on where that value and that benefit is going to come. And then the last piece is the how. So there's the financial piece of the how, which is included in most business model canvas exercises. Liz at Pika has a really good workshop on pricing and different pricing models. So I would highly recommend taking that and taking advantage of her expertise, or even in Liz's book, she has some really good tips on determining how you're going to price something, what sort of pricing structure you want. So that's kind of a gateway into that section. But then there's just, how will you deliver your services, and what do you need to build? Are there resources and tools that you need? Do you need different team members? Do you need a virtual assistant? Are there new skills or capabilities that you need? So this is kind of the section where you map out everything from, do you need a Zoom account? Do you need a Calendly account? Do you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator? Rather than kind of buying all the flashy things that people will start marketing to you as a business owner. If you haven't already experienced this, it will come, I promise, is all of a sudden your LinkedIn inbox gets flooded with people that are trying to sell you things. Of like, I can help you do this, or you need this fancy tool. And these are all built for business owners or solopreneurs. And it can get it can get distracting, but two, sometimes you're like, well, maybe do I need this? You start to question yourself. So taking the time to like actually map out what you need and what will help you be successful in delivering your services, I found is a very helpful grounding point for me to go back and say, no, I don't need that. Or maybe, okay, this is interesting, to determine like what you want to commit to. Has anyone else experienced that where they've been overwhelmed by the amount of resources and tools out there? Yeah, there's a lot, and they're all trying to sell too, so we can't blame them. But I think this gives us a guide into how to make things most effective for us. So I know that we went through a lot in a very, very short time, and all of you may be feeling a bit overwhelmed on all the various pieces to this. So I'll tell you a couple things. One, this can take time and it can evolve over time. So when I created the blueprint and like tested it on myself first, I did things step by step and little by little. I went through kind of the outer pieces first and started with what I know. I knew who I wanted to serve and I knew what I was offering. Use that to kind of create the why. And then truthfully, I've evolved the inner components quite a bit over time as I learn. And that's where the continued iteration of the blueprint's helpful. But just having a starting place, I found useful, and having some guiding questions to help you know what goes into each of these boxes. So my recommendations are, one, start somewhere, and, put in some accountability measures, whether it's purchasing the workbook and blocking time on your own to do it, whether it's joining the cohort, whether it's trying to take a stab at it, and refine it a little bit on your own right now and coming back and asking questions or deciding what support you need later. But just start somewhere. That will help. And then make yourself a commitment to actually hold yourself accountable for using the blueprint in a very intentional way, whether that means saying no to certain marketing events because that's not where your decision makers are, or shifting the language on your LinkedIn to be more geared towards the pain points or the gains that your clients want so they can resonate with that, or writing a draft, elevator pitch or networking introduction that weaves in some of those components. So start somewhere, know it doesn't have to be perfect, and know that this is meant to grow and evolve over time. Before I go into the last section, I just want to pause to see if any of you have reflections on whether you think this could be useful, and which pieces you think would be the most useful for your business based on the stage you're at. Anything stick out in particular?
I just have a question. Is there a particular area or question that you would suggest starting with? Like you mentioned kind of going around the outside first. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation because that's the foundation of it. In the cohort, I start people with the who. I kind of go primarily in the order that we went in today. I start with the who, then we go to the what, and we create the why. So that would be my recommendation. But I caveat that with saying if there's one of these boxes that stood out in particular and you have the information and are eager to just like document some notes, start with what's easiest, because just starting somewhere is better than feeling paralyzed and not knowing where to start. Kendra, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So a piece that I'm a little bit stuck on is the who. Who are you serving? I have assumptions. About
Sure.
who would want my services. And I've been thinking about wanting to do a customer interviews
Okay.
and that kind of thing, but I don't even know really how to, well, I'm probably just analysis paralysis a little bit on
Mhm.
getting started with that. Is that something that you can walk through in the who are you serving? Is that part of the technique there?
Yes, that's definitely a piece of it. And that's something, we can go through, we go through in much more detail within the cohort. Is one, it is a matter of just starting somewhere, because if you start to target a couple of people, then you quickly realize, oh, this isn't actually who I want to serve. And you can help narrow down that way. But sometimes being able to think more critically about the value that you want to create and some of the pains that you want to relieve for people, that can, in a way, identify who it is, because you'll be able to think, well, who is actually experiencing this pain? Is it nonprofit organizations? Is it large corporations? Is it middle managers or executive leaders? So sometimes if you feel really stuck on the who, I actually recommend that people go to the why and get clear on the pains and the
Okay.
gains. And that might help, in a way, create the who.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Does that help?
Yep. Thank you.
And again, I will never be able to say this enough, that it is ever evolving. So we put something down, we test it, we try again, and we learn from our experiences. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Awatif. I have a question about the costing and the cost model, and I know there's a
Mhm.
specific cause or path for that. But generally speaking, would you recommend us being, advertising and being upfront with our custom model to customers? For example, having a cost on the website, or do you recommend not putting that upfront?
So a little bit of it depends on what exactly you're selling. If you're selling kind of an on-demand service where it's a, single price and you get this, then yes, it might make sense to have it on your website. I personally don't, because what I charge depends on the scope of a specific project. So you'll be able to more effectively make that decision once you map out what exactly it is that you're offering, and then kind of a little bit of the when and the where. And that can help you define, like, do you just sell something that's a one-time thing, or are each of your engagements customized? And then you can determine, like, does it make sense to have it on your website or not?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit individualistic. I wouldn't say there's like a one size fits all, like, yes, have it on your website, or no, don't.
Yeah, a lot of people say don't. So I'm like, and because if you don't, you're kind of giving yourself some flexibility to do some promotions or do
Yes.
packages or whatever. But if you put it, then it might scare away people who don't have the budget, or people who
Yep.
think it's too expensive or what have you. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that particularly.
Yes. A little bit of it depends on kind of what's in your blueprint. But that's probably a good rule of thumb. So before we officially wrap up, you'll get the copy of this slide. But just so you are aware, if you are excited to continue on this journey, you can register for the cohort. It is 3 sessions, and then you get kind of, I say, lifelong access to ask me questions or feedback as you evolve. You do get $100 off if you register in the next 48 hours. So just keep that in mind. And if you are not quite ready to try it in a cohort setting and want to try it on your own, you can also just purchase the workbook, which there's the free version that you probably downloaded on the website, but there's a much more robust version that has activities, questions, and recommendations in there to kind of guide you through completing it on your own. All right. Well, I know we're 2 minutes over, so I will let you all go. But if there are any other last questions, I'm happy to stick around for a couple more minutes and answer any other questions or thoughts.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Thank you all so much.
Have a good day, everyone.
This was really helpful. Thank